This is Andy too. In this video I'm going to explain the solution to the problem of the thread looping on the Spartan 327K. And here's a slide if you remember the looping underneath in the original video, and all the comments that people kindly made about the possibilities. And then a viewer named Harlan bought the machine. So I met up with him the other day and gave him the machine, and we discussed some possibilities of the problem. I'm sure he had read most, if not all, of the comments, and his initial feeling was that it was the thread check spring on the upper tension unit. And I told him that I had come to believe there was maybe something with the bobbin case, because if I sewed slowly with the slide plate open and peeking under the fabric, I could see that as the thread rotated on the hook, grabbed it at 12 o'clock, and of course it goes counterclockwise, so when it got down to about 7 or 6 it would cast the thread off through the little gap between the bobbin case and the positioning spring. And I noticed that as it came around, and when it got to about what would be maybe 8 or 7:30, it seemed to hang there for a moment and then go. And during that period, the check spring would be straight up, and hang also as the thread on the bobbin case hung, and then it would just fall to the bottom. Now, so the good thing about this was he said he had a Singer badge 327K. So at least he had another machine to compare it to, and his machine was working perfectly normal. So the first thing he was going to try was the bobbin case. And I also had mentioned that one of the comments, a person said that they also felt it was the take-up lever maybe installed wrong or not working right, and if it wasn't that, then the check spring. So anyway, hours later that day, I got an email from him that he had swapped the bobbin cases and it didn't do anything to help the problem. So he was going to keep after it. Then several hours after that, he sent me 4 pictures in an email. And he says, take a look at these pictures and notice where the red arrows are in the pictures, and tell me how to fix this. Okay, great. So I'll enlarge these a little bit in a moment, but this is I'm going to call it the Singer badge the Singer, and the Spartan badge the Spartan. So what he would do is put the needles, he put the machine side by side, and like on the Singer, he put the needle all the way down as far as it would go, and he looked at everything. And then next to it, he would do the same on the Spartan. So these two pictures, Singer, Spartan, the needles are down all the way, and he noticed the difference in the position of the take-up lever. So that's why he's got the arrows here. He's kind of, he's showing where the lever is here, it's here, but what I noticed more to me was the angle between the needle bar connecting lever and the anchoring hinge screw. I don't know what that angle degree is, but they looked very different. I mean, this almost looks like a 90, so maybe this would be 110 or something. And let me enlarge this and show you a little better maybe. So I said, wow, what the heck is going on? And let me enlarge this other one. So there's definitely a difference between the two. And I said, okay, Then let me show you the other two pictures that he included with the, here's the Singer with the needle bar all the way up now, and then the Spartan with the needle bar all the way up. And it was the same kind of thing. And in all four of these pictures, like if you look at these two, here's the counterweight back here that this hinge stud right here goes into. And that's what controls the movement of the take-up lever. And the counterweights, besides the needle bars being in the same position all the way up, the counterbalances were in the same position. It's okay. And then you see this angle right here, and how the hinge stud is to the left of the needle bar. And then on the Spartan, the hinge stud is to the right of the needle bar, and the angle has opened up a little bit. And also, if you look at the eye of the take-up lever, you can see they're at a little different location. Not very much, but they are. So this was pretty puzzling to me. So okay, took a look at them, and here's the other one a little closer. So it finally dawned on me what happened, and I was the cause of this problem. And I had taken this, you know, the machine apart and everything for cleaning, and the inspection had told me I had a binding, and I did a video about binding and different possibilities, but the binding that I found was in this hinge screw over here that allows the take-up lever to go, you know, to hinge or swivel like that. So in the video I talked about how to adjust that, and in doing that I made a mistake on this hinge stud that goes into the counterbalance. So let me move to my workbench, and I'm going to show you the parts and explain where I went wrong. Okay, so we all remember this, right? Okay, let me get these parts over here. These parts are from a 401A Slant-O-Matic. Whoops. But the parts are very similar. This is the counterbalance. This is what the counterbalance looks like when it's not screwed onto the horizontal arm shaft. I took it off the shaft so that it could be easier to show you, but it basically sits on there like that all the way on, and then this screw pin screws into the counterbalance, and the pin on the end goes into that hole, and that keeps it from twisting. Okay, so then this hinge screw is mounted into the frame of the machine, and then this hinge stud goes through this other loop. Now there's a connecting needle bar connecting link that fits here and comes to the front that the needle bar clamp goes into. I don't have that part, but you see this indentated area. Those parts slide into this stud. Okay, and then when it goes in there, where is it here? There is a set screw right here that you tighten to hold that stud in place on the counterbalance. But it's very important that when you tighten that set screw, that it has to be on this flat spot right there. So let me show you a close-up picture of some of these parts. You could get a look at them. Okay, so in my video, and you can go look at it if you want, the binding or play in the thread take-up, I had loosened the set screw for this. Okay, and then I had loosened the set screw that holds this screw stud, and said, now you tighten up this set screw first, you push it all the way in and tighten it, and then you start running the machine slowly, and while it's moving you tighten the set screw for this, and it seats itself in this lowered area. It's kind of like a flat spot, but all the way around. But it's wider than the set screw that holds it. So that's why if it's too tight, it binds. If it's not pushed in enough into the body, there's play. And it clacks and wiggles back and forth. But by me concentrating about fixing the play on this, I totally just forgot that when I tightened this set screw, I had moved stuff around and it wasn't on the flat spot anymore. So that's why in the pictures that Harlan sent me, even though the needle bar height was perfect and the timing was perfect and there wasn't any play or binding in my Spartan anymore, I had changed the position by not being on the flat spot. And the main arm shaft and this counterbalance, when it turns, it's in a way it's timed with the needle bar and the hook, because this link that would go on here to come to the needle bar controls the up and down movement of the needle bar, and in my opinion it's timed with this counterbalance, because that's attached to the arm shaft, and that's why it's timed with the hook. So the needle bar and the needle point was perfectly timed with the hook. But this was not moving right when the needle bar would come down and this would come down and the thread would be slack and the check spring on the tension unit would be on the stop. The hook could grab that thread and come around. But this was going up early, making the thread drag on that bobbin case, and that's why I thought it was the bobbin case. But then when it popped off of there, this would be already up, and there wasn't anything to pull the rest of the needle thread up, so it would leave a loop. On a very short stitch length, like 20 per inch, it would leave a little tiny loop. Now I sewed these at closer to 6 inches per inch because I wanted you to see the loop. But when I did my zigzag stitch here, that was about maybe a 10 or 12, so you can see the loop is a little smaller. But that's what's causing it. It was my fault. And let me show you something here that's even in the service guide about when you reinstall the take-up lever. Let me show you that. So you see how important that is. They even make a special note, important, that when you put this in there and you tighten the set screw, this has to be turned so that the set screw goes right on the flat spot. And of course I normally do that. I've done many of these, and you can put it in there and start tightening this and slowly wiggle that and make sure that you get right on that flat spot. In the slide I showed you, you can even see a mark from where that set screw goes to hold it. But anyway, when I realized what I did, I sent that information back to Harlan, and late last night he sent me an email that said fixed. That was it. Hey, so I wanted to share that with you, that was the cause. It was operator error. It was my error. I put myself through misery for a week basically. And so a good lesson learned. And I should have known better, I think, because I'm very aware that when you hear a noise, it's not always where you think it's coming from. It could be something else. When you have a problem on one end of the machine, it can be totally at the other end, the cause. Just in the same way, you know, the needle bar and hook are on the left, but you change the timing on the right end of that shaft. So anyway, a good lesson learned. And the other thing about the checkup spring, a lot of people felt it was the checkup spring, and there wasn't any problem with the tension unit not putting tension, or the disc being wrong, or the thread not being between the disc. I've done a lot of tension units, and I replaced the whole tension unit, and I replaced just some of the parts of the tension unit, and but I always had plenty of tension on that tension unit. That's what got me involved with changing the bobbin tension, bobbin holder tension, which didn't help. But remember that the check spring only moves because the thread is pulling on it. That's why it's called the check spring. When tension comes on that thread and this take-up lever is moving, that tension and pulling from the thread is what makes that little check spring go up and down and up and down. And it's also timed with the take-up lever and the needle bar, so that when the needle bar comes down to pierce, the needle's going to pierce the fabric, the check spring is on the end. It's resting, so it won't put any tension on the thread. The thread is just slipping right through there until the up stroke. As it comes back up, that thread should get taut and put some tension on the check spring, but it's the lever that is pulling that needle thread back up tight to the bobbin thread. It's not the check spring that does that. It's the take up lever. In the same way as you have a needle and thread and you're sewing, you pierce your fabric and you've got thread here. You pull it through, but you keep pulling it to make sure that your thread goes all the way up tight to the fabric. Then you come to the other side and you put your needle back through and so forth. So I just wanted to comment on that. But that's it. That's the solution. That was a hard-learned lesson for me, and I'm glad it's been figured out, and I'm happy to share that in case you ever encounter that. After you've worked on the machine, or you get a used machine someplace and you have a similar problem. Looping underneath is normally caused by not enough or poor upper tension. That's very true. And looping on the top would normally mean too much upper tension. A small percentage of the time the tension on the bobbin case is wrong. And now I know that at least once, if you screw up putting that set screw on the flat spot, you've got a super low percentage of the looping cause, but you did it yourself. Thanks, guys. I hope you turn into my channel again in the future. And take care.